Hello, family. Weekly Elder Update. There's going to be some things that I talk about that are very familiar to you and may sound like repeats, but I tell you, stay tuned. I have an important update regarding worship services as well. First of all, I'd like to make a regular announcement that we've talked about before. At 8 o'clock on Sunday, there'll be the Bible classes offered through the Facebook and the YouTube for the first through the sixth graders. And then also we'll have, of course, 9 o'clock and 11 o'clock services meeting at the building. For those that made a reservation, those that let them step in ahead of time, we just appreciate you doing that. We still have some availability at both services, so it's opened up until it tells you you're full. So if you haven't had the opportunity, been sitting back waiting, for those that didn't have the opportunity, go ahead and get signed up now for that. Also at 9 o'clock, we're going to take another try at the parking lot service for those that may be held back and giving them the opportunity to continue their habit of going to the building, and so that will be there for that 9 o'clock broadcast on the FM radio. Sunday morning, we will live stream our services on Facebook and YouTube as we have done in the past for those that would like to attend and have the opportunity to watch from home. Sunday evening, we'll continue the 6 p.m. Wednesday evening service with Clint Davison, and at 7 p.m. on Wednesday evening, Larry Johnson will also be doing a Bible class. Both of those will be live streamed on Zoom. So here it is. Here's the important worship service update. Good news, Sunday, mark your calendars, the 23rd, we are planning, Lord willing, on allowing up to nearly double the amount of people by using the auditorium and the remote services combined, unless anything changes. But that's our goal and that's our plan. So reservations via text will go out this Monday. And there's not a request at this time to hold back for anyone. We know that we had great responses for the July 5th when we originally were coming back in full force, nearly 100 for each service. So again, we just take the opportunity to know that we're going to do as much as we can to get more folks available. So again, Monday, for the August 23rd service, sign up. We will have more spaces available for you. All right. So let's just get to a quick Devo. Something I've been thinking about. I think we call it, hey, what keeps you up at night? And I don't know that this keeps me up at night, but just a few thoughts here to be quick. And that's how easily I adapt my attitude to various changes. I think for me personally, it's very challenging to thinking going into them, during them, and after them. And I always try to look at and manage how well and how quickly am I embracing the change that's in front of me. So, I think the other thing that comes to mind is how comfortable am I being uncomfortable with certain changes. And at the same time, too, I think that's a familiar dilemma that we've all experienced lately, isn't it? Everybody that I've come across, when I ask how you do a change, is it easy for you? Oh, yeah, I have no problems. Statistically speaking, that's really not the case. Well, now you might be thinking, as Christians, we have a different mindset, and therefore, perhaps, that we should be able to adapt and embrace change a little bit easier. As the world shifts around us, we don't let that get to us. Again, I'll challenge you on that. I remember about 10 years ago, Richard asked us, as we were continuing to look at bringing friends and evangelizing and getting to know each other a little bit better and connecting, he asked us to change seats. I think you may or may not remember if you were here, but you can imagine the uncomfortable body language that existed almost immediately. You have the same experience, the same comfort of a chair 3 feet away, where you can have the same comfort and the same experience, and yet moving from point A to point B many times, for some reason for us, can just be so uncomfortable. We don't like to get uncomfortable to get comfortable with the change that is asked of us. So maybe thinking about how our attitude is in certain moments, embracing being uncomfortable. Well, let's think about one of the things that comes to my mind, and thinking about the fact we've been able to get back together last Sunday. Boy, I had a lot of things I could have thought about walking into that building, but all I could think about was the opportunity to worship God, the praising Him, the rejoicing, the seeing folks being together and having fellowship. It was fantastic. It reminds me of a great example that we had and we see in Paul and Silas in jail there, Acts 16 and verse 25. Let's read that. But about midnight, Paul and Silas, they're praying and singing hymns of praise to God, and the prisoners were listening to them. Well, I can only imagine you're in that situation and you have probably an expectation of how you think people should behave. And they certainly weren't behaving that way. They were embracing that change with certainly a right attitude. So you might think to yourself, well, John, you don't know the worst of my times. You don't know the worst of the changes that have come to my life. And with that, I say, I agree, I don't know. But what I do know is that none of us have experienced the change or the crown of thorns. No one here or around us will be killed for being sinless, for being perfect, and for being innocent. So I know that there are things out there that are more challenging than anything that we'll probably ever experience. My attitude, if I think about this, I think often about it can, it will, and I know it does impact my decisions as well. It's critical for us, I think, to understand that. I think that probably is why we hear the term, you know what, you need an attitude check. And I think of those things often with myself on how I act or react to certain situations. Something to ponder and maybe remember. I think it becomes easier to make decisions, again, by getting comfortable with those changes as quickly as we can. We've got to navigate the change successfully to make the decisions driven by our attitude. And I think that's about our mindset. We talked often about God is in control of all things. Well, hate to disappoint you, but God also tells us we're under the free law of liberty. He talks about that in James. He gives us a choice to choose to follow him or to not. So with that, I think comes the fact that we are in charge of our emotions. We are in charge of how we act and react to situations. We're accountable for that. And it's even harder when the world around us just seems upside down sometimes. Hey, listen, I know it's tough. Richard's done a great job talking about things like knowledge and self-control with some lessons out of one of my favorite books in the Bible, and that's in James. James 1 and verse 5, it talks about the very fact that he who lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives liberally and without reproach, and it will be granted. So what a wonderful thing to think about. We look beyond the scriptures and we look beyond just the knowledge of the scriptures that we may have, and we try to implement them by living them out in our lives. You know, I think there's a lot of other priorities that maybe get in the thoughts of our mind. Example, something for me, I go to work, I normally press the elevator button, I go up to the second floor, and I'm there. Today, before I even get in the elevator, I'm wondering, where's the sanitizer? Do I have gloves? Who touched that button before me? Am I supposed to touch with my finger or my elbow? Should I use the sleeve of my shirt? Should I just take the stairs? There's so much out there that now compromises my mind with these things that in the past I think were more routine items that really are becoming really weighting us down with other thoughts. So I challenge you, I challenge myself. We've been in a 5-month experiment. This whole thing has been new to everybody, hasn't it? So there's been a great deal of lockdown, and we probably made some decisions that were hit and miss. And we can live there, or we can accept starting to get comfortable with maybe being a little more uncomfortable, trying to see, how do I change myself? How do I remember to control what I can control, which is my emotions and how I react to some of the new normal things around me? I think where I start there is just having a good attitude. Do I have a good attitude, or is it bad? Am I going to be a servant, or am I just looking for others to serve me? Instead of dwelling on what I or others may have done wrong, or what they may or may not do wrong in the future, maybe I just focus on controlling what I can control as well. Philippians 3:14-16. I press on toward the goal for the prize of the upward call of God in Christ Jesus. Let us therefore, as many are perfect, have this attitude. And if in anything you have a different attitude, God will reveal that also to you. However, let us keep living by that same standard to which we have attained. Today and every day, I get to choose and align my attitude with staying focused on God's standard, letting the world not drive me. I like being uncomfortable. What the world finds to be comfortable, that's a pretty good indication you're probably doing things right. Lord willing, folks, I'm looking forward to seeing some of you this Sunday. I too will be there. All my love, stay safe, and more importantly, stay active in your service. Have a good night.